Writers have more stories to tell than those that are written on a page. Join me as I talk about my life, loves, and inspiration behind my work so far, and maybe even a sneak peek into stories yet to come. Hi, I'm Chris Tetralt-Blay, and this is Dead Men Talk. So here we are, for the second week in a row. I'm actually bringing you lucky listeners a special guest on Dead Men Talk. So again, I'm not going to be talking about myself. I'm going to let somebody else talk about themselves. And this guest is very special to me. She is really the one of the main reasons why this podcast is even in existence. But I'll let her tell you more about herself. But in her sort of portfolio on her CV, we've got makeup artist, director, drama teacher, author, podcaster, presenter. I was getting there, don't worry. But she's got her own podcast as well, so she's pretty much done everything. So welcome to Dead Men Talk, Jacky Rom.
Hello, Chris.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. You?
Yeah, I'm really very good, thank you. I'm just thinking, aren't we lucky that all the way through the lockdown we've just been able to carry on?
Just carry on. That's it. I mean,
Carry on.
It's something I was going to ask, so I might as well just launch straight into it. How, with everything you've had going on, how has lockdown affected any of your plans? Have you had to go in different directions, or have you pretty much been able to stick to what you were planning to do anyway?
No, it's gone in a wild direction. Completely insane. I'm so tired. I need a holiday. Everybody else is like sleeping all the time, whatever, and I'm doing the opposite.
Yeah.
Because not far into it, and you did mention that I'm a drama teacher, so I was talking to an ex-student, I mean many years ago, ex-student, and he lives in LA and he's a producer. And I was chatting, I can't even remember what I was chatting about now, and he said, why don't you make a web series? I'll get you the guests. And that's how it started. So then for 5 weeks I filmed over 22 interviews with the most amazing people, and I know, Chris, you know some of them because we've been chatting about it. But they are secrets. I mean, this series, we've done 3 series, and I'm not sure you know about tomorrow because I've done a Pride. It's World Pride Month.
Okay, yeah.
So I've got a very special guest tomorrow, but it might not be tomorrow when your podcast. So I really should say the date.
That's all right. Yeah, no, that's cool. So, I'm recording this probably about sort of 2 weeks ahead of time. So by the time this rolls out,
you
have to plan.
You?
Yeah.
So in June,
yes.
I release a episode which is dedicated to Pride, World Pride Month. Because it's a month this year because it's virtual.
Yeah.
And I interview the ex-mayor of Hollywood.
Wow.
And he's actually going to be mayor next year because they do it in 4 or 5 years. And he's amazing. And his story is incredible because he was one of the first lawyers that started to defend people with AIDS in the 70s. Wow, and so his story is just amazing. But he lost over 100 friends during the AIDS epidemic. Wow. But his story is incredible. So,
I was going to say even that alone. So that just sort of sets the scenes, ladies and gentlemen, for the kind of guests that Jacky has on her show. Yeah,
so you just go to YouTube to Jacky Rom. Because I've got my own channel.
Yeah,
that sounds so funny.
So this
is my channel.
This is Jacky's new YouTube web series that we're talking about. Jacky Rom Investigates. Where I mean, you sort of give the overall what it entails, what it's about, what we can expect.
It's all about interviewing ordinary people with extraordinary lives, and as an author we all need inspiration, and I'm sure this happens to you, Chris, but you're out and about talking to anyone. I've had it happened about 3 times this week, and somebody says, oh, you need to write my story, and then they tell you this wacky story, and sometimes it does end up in a book. And I'm going to tell you one story that was it hasn't ended up in a book, but it's a fascinating story. So I met this lady, I was in the Caribbean, and she was from New York, Italian New York family.
Okay.
And she told me when she was 7 years old, so it's a few years ago, they used to go out every Friday night, and she used to dress up and have gloves and a little handbag. I can't remember if she was 7 or 9, but about that age. And they went to this Italian restaurant, a big table. You can imagine all the mafia sitting there as she tells this story. And all of a sudden, her dad, under the table, passes over a gun under the table and says, put it in your handbag, really quietly. So she opens the handbag, puts the gun in the handbag. 5 minutes later, the police raid, and they never found the gun.
Oh, okay.
So,
there you go. So that belongs in a book or a film.
Yes, exactly. So that's just one story. So it's all about hearing people, meeting people, and, you know, it doesn't matter how famous they are. Everybody comes from humble beginnings.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's just hearing people's stories, really.
And I've seen the first few episodes so far, and I mean, they're not necessarily people that I heard about for any reason, but their stories are fascinating. You know, there's definitely been something in each one that I've taken away. So
the first one, he was a New York banker in Wall Street and gave it all up, went over to the Caribbean and became a radio host of a rock and roll station.
Yeah,
but that's sounds like a book, doesn't it?
It does, and it's. I mean, these are not like you say, ordinary people with extraordinary lives. So yeah, people that have started off from humble, normal beginnings, ended up doing just one or two things which remarkable enough that they can keep telling people about really for the rest of their lives. So
I must say, my second one was one of my favourites because that was Harvey Santos.
He was good.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
And he was a ballet dancer with the Hong Kong Ballet, and then came to England with his boyfriend and became a milliner, and now is milliner to the stars, and also a drag queen. So I just got on. So literally, as I called him on Zoom, as we do, he popped up and he's wearing a crown, and I thought, this is going to be a good interview. I just knew.
Have you had any dealings or conversations with these people before you record the shows, or this is pretty much new to you as well?
No, and when we start, I actually say to them, I'm not going to say anything, so that I have to research because I have to know my questions. So, but I don't research very deep because you find that the research doesn't really matter, because once you start talking, you've got questions to ask. So, no, there was only one. And I can't say, but you know who he is because I told you.
Yes.
And he was the one I've done the most research on, because he's such a public figure and his story is so public. I did do it, but I was just fascinated by him and his story. So so it's all very.
Can't wait for that one. I really are. Sort of after you did hint or full on, tell me his name. I went away and I found out more about him, and it is a fascinating story. So
did you watch the documentary?
Yes. It was brilliant.
I know we're talking in riddles here, but he's now well known for singing a song that makes you think, and his story is the song that he's now synonymous with.
So and when it comes out, people check it out. They'll probably hopefully figure out once it comes out who it is we're talking about at the time when the episode comes out. They'll know which one we're referring to.
Yeah, exactly. Well, was it you that thought it was somebody from Kiss? Was it you? No, somebody said to me, I can't remember because I wouldn't tell. You're the only one I've told. I haven't told anyone. And somebody was trying to guess, and they thought that it was one of the guys from Kiss because I said, an American rock band. So
there you go. So that will hopefully pique the interest of a few people listening to this that I know listen to this who are into the same music as me. So definitely go onto YouTube. What's the channel called?
Jacky Rom.
Just Jacky Rom.
That's easy. And I'm a Y, so I'm a JACKYROM.
There you go.
So I always say to people, go onto my website because it sends you wherever you want. You can see the books I write, the podcast, the life of a crime novelist. I can even hear myself. It sounds like my podcast thing.
I hear that every Friday. So
Oh, well, now, because it's all got a bit too much, I've just written another book and released a book.
wow.
So I'm putting my Jacky Rom Investigates, I'm now putting on the podcast.
Yeah.
So for the next few weeks, it
So
will be the podcast.
that's brilliant. So you don't actually have to be in front of a screen to really hear the conversations that you have. You can now have it on the move. Like I listen to podcasts when I'm in the car driving to work. So, even if I can't watch it.
Here's another secret. Do I tell you when I listen to podcasts?
Go on.
When I wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, I want to go back to sleep.
Yeah. I mean, I found a few. Not to say that I found any boring ones; they've all fascinated me. But there's something soothing about listening to it. Yeah.
If you force me to listen, so if you're going to put on some, and I have tried it, meditation or sleep, I will fight against it, and I don't mean to, but my brain fights against it. But if you're giving me something interesting to listen to, then my brain will switch off and allow me to sleep.
Yeah.
And I can go back.
Yeah.
That's the beauty, isn't it, of a podcast?
It is, yeah, absolutely. I've done that where I've had to go back 2 or 3 times because of, one thing or another. I miss something or I fall asleep, or it's while I'm trying to concentrate on where I'm going. I've taken wrong turns on the motorway because I've been so enthralled in what I've been listening to. So,
Can I tell people how your podcast came about?
of course you can. Yeah, I was gonna ask you to divulge that just so we can find that one. But yeah, go ahead.
So I don't know how long we've been talking because you were a guest on my podcast, but we've both got the same publisher. So it's nice to talk to another author because, like me, being an author, everybody thinks it's very glamorous, but you do it all on your own. It's nowhere near as glamorous as they think. Anyway, I had downloaded, I don't know if I've told you all of this, I had downloaded an app on my phone called Quibi. Quibi, and it's a new way of watching TV. It's really interesting, and at the time it was free, and Jennifer Lopez has got something to do with it, and some massive people, and it's all TV programs, but they're all 10 minutes long.
Okay.
That's all.
Yeah.
And now you've got to pay to stream it, but you didn't. Anyway, there was a series produced by J-Lo called oh God, I've forgotten it. Something. Thanks a Million.
Okay.
Sorry, it's called Thanks a Million, and it was 10 famous people had £100,000. Have I told you this story?
I think you told me a little bit of it. Yeah, but go ahead.
Okay. So and you watch, and it's only 10 minutes long. You watch this person take £100,000 in cash and take it to somebody that they feel needs it, or they're grateful. There's a reason why. So they take this money and they say, I'm giving you this, but there's one catch. You can keep half, you've got to give away half. Okay. And they do that down to 25,000, and then the last person keeps 25,000. Okay. Well, it was so inspirational, and it just inspired me. I haven't got £100,000.
No, that's okay.
And one day we were just chatting about work, and you were saying, I really fancy doing a podcast. And you just literally in conversation said, but I think my computer will die. It's so old and I don't like change much. Anyway, so that was all you did, is just make a comment. So I went away and thought about it, and I thought, I can probably go and buy one. If I'm careful, I can go and buy one. So this is and then I thought for about 2 weeks, and I thought, do I do this or not? I really want to buy Chris a computer. And then I had a brainwave, right? And so I went to a networking site that I've used many times, and all I did is said, I know somebody that would really like to do a podcast and needs a new computer. And within 5 minutes, a man donated the computer. It was just, he said, I've got them in the office. He said, you can have one. Well, honestly, I didn't know what to say really, because it happened so fast. And then I went, yes. And then we sent it to you, and then I went, can I watch while you open it?
Yeah,
it was good fun.
It was good fun. It was very cryptic. I had no idea really, because I mean it was just a conversation that we had, and the reason I mentioned about my laptop. So I've had just the same laptop for about 10 years. I've written all my books on it. it's a bit battered. Even the screen's fallen apart now, I've found out, so it's good timing actually. And then yeah, Jackie just came through and she asked if she could have my address. She had something to send me, and it
Did
was
you
all.
have any idea at that
No,
point?
I think right when not until I saw it arrive, I think, and then I saw sort of the size of the box that the guy dropped off, and it went through my head, and I was like, nah, it can't be, that. But it was really it's one of the sweetest things people anyone's done, and this is the reason why this podcast exists. So I am really really grateful.
And it was just a real pleasure to be able to do it.
Yeah, no,
And I didn't do anything. I didn't really do
well, no,
anything.
but it's
I
sort of
facilitated it.
your sort of selfless act and somebody else's selfless act is it just comes together and makes these things possible, which is it really helps restore your faith. I'm not going too deep here, but it does restore your faith in
I do
humanity
think,
at the
though,
minute.
that I do hope the lockdown has done something too. I think it's a few things. I hope it's made us all a little less selfish, because I think mankind has turned very selfish.
Yeah,
And I think it needs. I hope it's made us think about other people as well.
yeah. I mean, I can see it locally. We are, where we live, the estate that we live on. It's a new build estate, but we've got our own community Facebook group, and it was sort of getting going just before lockdown anyway. But since then, I mean, there's been so many offers, pleas for help or advice and offers, just people wanting to give up their time or anything they can to help people, and it's lovely.
I'm glad people are opening up and say I need help, because that's really important,
Yeah.
because otherwise we don't know.
No, and then it just gets worse, and then
Yeah.
you can't get
I
over it.
run a charity. I don't know if I've told you about this. I run a charity
Tell
in
the listeners they've not heard this
Okay.
before, even if I have.
So I'm very, very lucky. I have a home in the Caribbean on a little island called Saint Martin, which is half Dutch and half French. And just over 2 years ago, it was hit by Hurricane Irma, and it was devastated. I can't even describe the damage. And it happened on September the 6th, and I managed to get one of the first flights out in the beginning of November. And I met a friend of mine, and I knew I wanted to help, and I didn't know how. And we just literally took a drive. And from this one-day drive, we saw how much and what needed to be done. And within 2 or 3 days, we were given 4 containers full of clothes
Wow.
and food, and that's how it all started.
Yeah.
So I set up something called All About a Smile, and 2.5 years later we've raised tens of thousands of pounds, and we do a lot of shopping, because we won't give people money, we won't pay bills,
No.
but we'll buy clothes, and give people food, and people that, well, we've put roofs over people's heads,
Wow.
bathrooms. I remember one day I was out there, and there was a group of volunteers called Freegan Foods, and they would go and pick up food that was out of date and
Okay.
cut it all up with volunteers and take it out to people that needed feeding.
Wow.
And I went out, I volunteered for the day, and I was introduced to this lady, and I went in her house. Well, I say her house, she only had 4 walls, no toilet, no bathroom, no ceiling, no nothing. It was nothing. And there was little children running around. Anyway, I put a bathroom in very quickly, and a toilet and a shower, and then we found out that the children that were running around, she was looking after neighbours' children so that they could go to work. She was earning pennies for doing this.
Yeah.
Not one toy, Chris, not one toy.
No.
And I managed to get some things, like the little plastic tables so they could
Yeah.
sit down and eat, some toys and things like that. Anyway, I was there one day, and I saw people were coming and going, and I was a bit suspicious, because when you've got no money,
Yeah.
the things that you will do to earn money,
Yeah.
and I don't want to be a part of it.
Nope.
So I was a bit worried that there was drugs or something going on. Anyway, I found out that time we hadn't done her kitchen, and she only had 1 ring, and she was cooking for the locals.
Oh, really?
So they were coming with plastic, and she was feeding the
Wow.
locals. I think they were buying, and that's how she must have earned pennies,
Yeah.
So we put in a beautiful cooker, so that she could cook more.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Is that,
So
is that something that you're still involved in over there, or was it more sort of at
yeah,
the
I run it.
time as you do?
No,
Oh,
no, no, I still run it. And
still
of
going.
course now the whole island is shut.
Yeah.
Um, you learn about politics as well when you
Yeah.
do something like this, because politics doesn't, I won't let politics be involved with the charity,
Sure.
but of course it is involved on
Mm.
the island because it's an island. People come from all over the Caribbean
Yeah.
by boat, and they're not supposed to be there.
Right.
And I can't, to me, it's a human. So you get Haitians, Jamaicans, those from
Yeah.
Dominica, a
Yeah.
lot of Dominicans, and they're very poor and they need feeding. So I will still feed
Yeah. Of
people.
course.
So it's been interesting. But of course, the whole island's shut and these people have got no jobs. I'm supposed to go back on July the 9th. My flight has been changed 5 times.
Blimey.
We don't even know when the island's going to open,
No.
but I've only got one volunteer on the island, and poor guy, he's going around doing everything at the moment on his own.
Jeez.
And we so there'll be, because we're all coming back, there's lots of volunteers coming back soon as the island opens, and we'll have so much to do.
Yeah.
We are prepared for it. They're literally, the government have had to do food parcels.
Wow.
So they will only do food for the people that are legitimate islanders.
Oh, okay.
If you're not legit,
So
you're
yeah,
not going to be
they won't
looked
do it.
after.
Which
So.
it's difficult, isn't it? Because on the one hand you can understand that, but then there's people. There
Oh,
are people
totally.
there that are in the same boat that need the same aid. So
Yeah, and I respect what they're doing,
mm,
but I'm just seeing people as humans.
yeah,
So
sure,
it just
yeah,
depends. I mean, I won't. We don't say anything. We just deliver food and go.
yeah,
And I had when we were there setting it up, there is one kind of real shanty town, and we were told not to go. There
mm,
was me and Jeff, who's the other guy that I said, just the two of us set up the charity,
yeah,
and we had, the whole car was full to the roof, and he had an SUV,
right,
and stupidly we thought, nah, we'll be all right. We drove in, and it was like, like we would call a jumble sale,
yeah,
or early in the morning at a boot
yeah,
sale. It was
wow,
scary.
oh
They
dear,
all, because they were going to sell it, they would
yeah,
get pennies for things.
yeah.
So it's been quite interesting.
Oh, so that's in amongst everything else that you do. I'm glad you actually. I'm glad you mentioned that you've written another book. Is it you've actually finished writing it, or have you
I
in the process
released it
of?
a week ago, and Chris, I can't believe this. In the first week, this has been my biggest seller.
There you go.
Mad.
There you go.
Because normally, your friends and relatives buy the books.
Yeah,
That's natural.
yeah,
And then, you've got to get the word out there and promote it and whatever. But this book I've written is specifically for drama teachers. And basically I've just hit the right place at the right time,
brilliant.
because it's about teaching virtually.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah,
And there's so many teachers that really have struggled to change what they normally do.
yeah.
And I've just handed them a book, really, and said,
There you
just
go.
open it and you can teach a class. So
Yeah,
yeah,
so
it's been
that's
interesting.
another corner of the market that
Yeah, just
you've
right
got
place,
hold
right.
of. How did your so going back sort of as far as we can anyway? How did your writing journey start? Sort of where or when did you decide you had a book in you that you wanted to write, or did it just happen?
I'm going
Or
I'm going to go back further. There are two incidences in my life I remember. I've always been a bit of a drama queen. So I used to go to drama classes. My parents had a drama coach, all those type of things.
yeah,
And then I wrote my first play when I was 17. And I always wanted to be a director, as you know.
yeah,
I wanted to be a director. So it was at a youth club, a really big youth club. You don't have them anymore, but there must have been like 100 people there on a Thursday night, is where everybody went
yeah,
to meet up. Anyway, I put they used to have charity things, and I said, I'll put on a show, I'll write it. So I did, and and I put on a show, and I put on a
wow,
full-length musical. And it's really funny because One of the guys that plays the lead is now my agent,
Oh, okay.
and I interview him. He's one of my guests. But
Brilliant.
I still know. I don't know. There might have been 10 lead people in the play, and I still know and see 8 out of the 10 people.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
It's just,
So that's one instance that sticks in my mind.
yeah.
And then the other one, I was on holiday and I wrote a poem. I used to be writing poems as a kid. I was like a Pam Ayres fan, and they were
Okay.
all light-hearted and funny. We were on holiday, a family holiday. Must have been 16, 17. And I went in the lounge and read this poem to my parents, and my dad went, "You didn't write that." And he was very much like that.
Yeah.
"You didn't write that." I said, "I did. I've just written it." I said, "Give me any subject in the world and I'll write you a poem." He said, "Go and write one about me." So I went and I wrote this really funny poem. I can't even remember it now, about
Oh,
him. And so that reminds me, but of course, and we've talked about this before, it's the "no, you didn't" or "you can't"
yeah.
that makes me do it.
Yeah, that does drive you, doesn't it? And it's as much as staying true to what it is that you want to do. I think if you receive not criticism, but challenges, and people saying you can't or you won't be any good at something, naturally, I think you want to prove them wrong. So
Oh, yes, I've had lots of that. But I must say, every single time it's happened, um, it's a bit like, "I'll show you." I'm
yeah,
still doing that now, Chris. Really, up to this day,
yeah,
if I'm challenged, I will say, "I'll show you."
yeah. And why
Wait.
not? And why not?
Yeah.
So you've written for children and you've written for adults. Which do you prefer? What do you enjoy most? The adult writing or the children's?
I don't
Put you
think,
on
do
the
you know,
spot.
no one's ever asked me that.
There you
Isn't that
go.
funny? I like original questions. Um, okay. Um, Very different,
Mm,
very, very different. It can take me a year to write an adult book because I write crime fiction. It's the research,
yeah,
hours and hours and days and weeks of research,
yeah,
and you have to get it right. You know, readers of crime know every crime there is,
yeah, yeah,
and they're real critics. So you've
yeah,
got to get it right.
yeah,
So that's much harder. So I like writing for the 7 to 11-year-old. That's my age group, and I
yeah,
like teaching that age group, and they've still got their imagination. They still don't mind, and they make me laugh what they enjoy.
yeah.
I had 8 children, and I did it was a friend of mine in China asked me to do it, and I had to do book reviews. So so these 8 kids had to read 3 books of mine and then review them. It was
Okay.
really over about 6 weeks. And out of the first 3 books of my series, they all said the best bit is when they found a dead body in a freezer. Have I told you this before?
That's the right age. I think I've heard you say that before. But yeah, they're just at that right age. I mean, my
Uh,
two are 6, and they would probably be thinking along those lines. Actually,
Isn't it funny?
yeah,
And it wasn't a horrible, it wasn't a murder.
no,
That it was an old lady, her husband had died, and she didn't want him to go far away, so she put him in the freezer. So it
like you
was
do.
still light-hearted, and it wasn't murder.
Yeah,
But the kids loved that little bit, and it
yeah,
just, yeah, discerning. That's what
yeah,
adult readers are. So I think you can have more fun and be more creative.
yeah.
But I did find that there was very little respect. I don't know if that has happened to you.
Not so. I know you said this before. In terms of, I think the general consensus is it's easier to write children's books. I haven't had that myself, but I do completely understand where you're coming from. The attitude sometimes from the outside looking in is that anyone can write a children's book. I found it, to be fair, it's probably one of the most difficult ones because you writing for adults as an adult is a lot easier because you're in the right mentality. You've got to put yourself back into kids' shoes, but not only kids' shoes, but trying to write something that they're going to find interesting, funny, attractive, whatever, because they've got the shortest attention spans. So actually, writing a kids' book was my challenge after starting out with adult horror fiction.
Yeah, you did the opposite.
I did the opposite, but purely because when I started out, somebody asked me in one of the earliest interviews what other genre would you like to write? And I had to say kids' books mainly because I thought if you've got the harshest critics, so if you can write something that they accept, then it's got to be good. You know, there's no sort of two ways about it. They'll tell you if they love it or they hate it. So yeah, so receiving, I guess for you, receiving, you know, that kind of response, like I know you've said in the past, where they think it's easy, and it's almost like when you say you're a writer and you write children's books,
Yeah.
you it's like they think it's the easier way out. You know, like I
Yeah.
say, anyone can do it, but
But I physically saw people would say, "What do you write?" I write children's books, and you physically saw their shoulders go,
yeah,
"Oh."
yeah, it's
And I
almost like a
think,
disappointment.
I'll show you.
Yeah,
And it wasn't anyone specific. And it is funny that I do get more respect writing crime fiction because people go, "Oh."
yeah.
It is funny. I quite like it.
I've kind of had the opposite. I think I've had more interest, yes, with people that I know, but also further afield from my children's book, because I think writing horror, it's so niche anyway. You've really got to find your audience with that, and I think I've got a wider reach with the children's stuff at the minute. If I turn to one of the others, say a thriller, my horror books aren't really thrillers. I think more sort of chiller or something. You know, it's not gory, but it's not. The intrigue probably isn't there like it would be with a mystery or a thriller book. If I chose to go into that realm, maybe I'd find that there's a bigger pool of people to.
Yeah,
join
I
into.
find the hardest thing is I have reams and reams of paper, and if I had an office or if I stayed in one place, which I don't,
Yeah.
I would have boards with all different things on it, like timelines and backstories. And
Yes.
with crime, you got to get your red herrings in. You got everybody has a backstory because murder happens for a reason,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you don't really want to find that out till the end.
No.
You've got to try and make it not formatted because
Yeah.
you don't. People are going to stop reading them if they're too alike.
I have. Yeah, there's been a couple of writers in the past I've read loads of their books, and then I sort of hit a point, you know, through their back catalogue. I'm like, this I can kind of predict what's going to happen now because of how it's gone in other books, and I've stopped reading.
Well, in my first book, one person died. In my second book, two people died. I really very nearly went for three, and I thought, no, I've got to. Nobody's to know how many's going to die.
No, fair enough. There's two classifications or two terms that people tend to use for writers, whether you are a pantser or a planner. Are you familiar with those? Have you heard those before? So if
What's the first one? Planner. I'm a planner.
So you're a pantser.
Oh, that means to just go and write.
Just basically fly by the seat of your pants. So
Couldn't.
no,
I'm so organised.
see, that's again interesting because that's the polar opposite to me. I haven't planned any of mine. Probably in the last book I had in my trilogy, which is Of Gods and Insects, which I discussed on the podcast, it would be 2 weeks ago. I probably did a little bit more planning there because I had to bring all of the elements together, and I needed to know where I was going. But I was still writing a lot of it on the fly. All the books I'd written up to then, I just kind of just sat down in front of a laptop, had a few ideas. I just kind of saw where it took me.
I think the children's books I did like that.
Yeah,
They were mystery books, so I knew about what was going to happen.
Yeah.
But with the crime fiction,
you've really got. I think it's down to the genres probably do decide that. I mean, with horror, I suppose I could just sort of throw in whatever came to my mind. I could really still be imaginative. Certain portion of mine, they're not really they're like supernatural, so I could let my imagination run away with me as I was going. So maybe one day. I am quite envious of all the authors I see with big, like you say, boards on the wall, post-it notes everywhere, bits of string.
oh, I'd love that.
Yeah,
And
if I could do that, if I had the time to do that.
Yeah. In my books, my character, that's what she does.
Is it?
My character does it.
There you
Yeah,
go.
Sandra. My series is called the Sandra Bernstein Chronicles, and she's a makeup artist. And everywhere she goes, she has a murder room. She creates a murder room. And so she has a sidekick called Andy, who's a PA, because it all happens on a film set.
Yeah.
They always go from one film set to another. And so she always finds a place to have her, her murder room.
Yeah. How many Sandra Bernstein books have you done now? Is it
I'm on
3?
the third.
You're on the third one. Still in the works? You still?
Yeah, well, I keep stopping and doing things like recording 20 interviews for Jacky Rom Investigates
I
and
don't
another
know.
book.
I don't know. There you go.
But I'm going away, hopefully in July,
Yeah.
and so it's all here ready. It's all the outline because I write the outline. Oops, sorry, hold on. I know you can't see it, but
That's
I
all
just
right.
that's the outline. It's all handwritten,
Yeah.
A4 sheets,
Very
and each
impressive.
page is about a chapter.
Okay.
And I think I normally have about 15 chapters. It depends on the story.
I've
So
always
the whole story is planned.
I've always had a notebook, and I always tend to buy notebooks because I'm like, I'm going to start organising my writing. I'm going to write notes before I actually finished my first novel. When I started way back, I actually filled half a notebook actually handwriting a story out, and only certain parts of that have made it into any of my books. So I've still actually got, if I ever went back to it, I've still got some material there to finish off.
I get asked all the time, how do writers start? How do they, if you're thinking about writing a book, how do you start? And I always say, get yourself a box, like a shoebox,
Yeah.
and anything you can think of, just write notes and put it in. Whenever you think of something, doesn't matter day or night, put it in your shoebox.
Yeah.
And one day you'll open that box and there'll be a book.
There you go. And that's I've had a few more people most recently actually ask me for advice, and I don't think I'm in a I still don't feel like I'm in a position to pass advice on because
Pinch my
there you go. I'll get from the expert. So yeah, I always sort of
I'll go
say
expert.
no, but it's always interesting to find out how different authors plan or get their ideas down. Actually, like capture that inspiration, because with me it used to come, not so much these days, I am trying to get it back, but it just used to come to me at any point. My drives to and from work, and when I was stood doing the washing up, we have a dishwasher now, so I don't do as much of that. I don't do as much thinking around the place, but they just used to come to me, and I used to have to then scrabble from my phone or anything close by to note this one
Mine's
line
driving.
or whatever. Yeah.
Driving all the time. Driving.
Yeah.
I have got myself a little dictaphone because
Okay.
it's easier than trying to get your apps on your phone, but I haven't used it yet. But and if I'm away, because I normally put myself in a position 3-4 weeks or whatever and just write.
Yeah.
And if I can't do anything, I'll just get out in the car and drive. And
Fair enough. Yeah. Just zone out. Yeah.
So driving, is how I do it.
Cool. So just sort of for the next little section, I've just got some great questions that I pulled out. Not sort of specific to anything you've done necessarily, but I just thought that they're interesting ones to kind of open up and learn a little bit more about you. So what's something people seem to misunderstand about you?
That I'm rich.
I like that one.
Because they think, everyone knows J.K. Rowling and how rich she is.
Yep.
So they think that if you're, and I'm on book 16, that you're rich. Yeah, that's instant, those.
No, that's brilliant. I like that. I'm still waiting for people to think that. Mind you, a lot of people, even, bless them, a couple of the parents that we've met sort of since our kids have been going to school, since they found out that I'm a writer, they think I do that full time, which is lovely. I mean, that would be my dream. But it's like, when I say to them, I'm working today, they think I'm coming home to write a book, which I wish I was. If you could turn back time and talk to your 18-year-old self, what would you tell her?
Do it. Don't talk about it, do it. Whatever it is.
Was there anything as you were growing up that you wanted to do that you haven't yet achieved? This is just a side question.
Yes, and I think it was just a sign of the times, because you know my story. So if I just go over it quickly.
Sure.
At 15, I was called into the careers advisor, as we all are at school. And she said to me, what do you want to do? And I said, I'm going to be a director. Notice, I'm going to be a director. Yep. And she said, don't be so ridiculous. And she chucked me out the room and told me to come back the next day with a proper job. And I really do not know how I did this, because there was no internet, so that I'm that old. And I went back the next day and I said, okay, I've decided I'm going to become a makeup artist. And she said, that's much better. And she said, and where are you going to train? I said, I'm going to go to the London College of Fashion, which was the biggest. It was in the West End,
Yeah.
right in Oxford Street. And she said to me, you'll never get in. So that's the first time I remember I said, I'll show you, which I did, and I got in. But the dream of being a director has been there all my life. And so if I had my time again, yes, I would have tried to pursue to be a director.
Yeah.
Not now. I have no want to now, because I've been directing, and I made a documentary called Method of Murder, where I went with the film crew to Vegas to research my second book. And the job of the director, it was the time where I thought, actually, I don't want to ever do this job.
Fair enough.
So I produced it. I was one of the producers, which I loved. So I think as a child, I probably didn't know what a director does, really.
You see their name flash up on the screen, I suppose, and think it's probably a lot more, a lot easier, a lot more glamorous than it probably is. But yeah.
And I love producing, so coming up with an idea and turning it into fruition. So that's probably more my job.
Brilliant. Cool. This is always a good one. It's quite a cliche one, this, but if you could have dinner with any 3 people, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
It would be Elvis Presley.
Cool. Yeah.
Judy Garland and Bette Midler.
Could you?
And I'll tell you why.
Go on then.
So Elvis, I haven't particularly been an Elvis fan, but I think he was a misunderstood genius.
Yeah.
And it would just be fun to sit at the table and hear the stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
Judy Garland, I think she's exactly the same. She was taken, just like Elvis. The pair of them are very similar because from very young, they were controlled.
Yeah.
And so they were everybody else's property.
Yeah.
And Bette Midler, because I just love her. I love her audacity, her confidence.
Yeah.
And she's a very talented lady as well. So they would be. I'd love that table.
That would. Excuse me. Going back to Elvis just a second. I was quite a big fan growing up. There's a two-part of the official biography written of him. I don't know if you've seen it at all. Well worth a read. If not, I think it's Last Train to Memphis is the first part and Careless Love is the second part. Pretty huge book, but they're really, really good. It goes into everything, but it's a sad, like you say, it's a sad tale really of someone who was thrust in the
well, he was a commodity, wasn't he? He was a commodity, and he made a lot of people a lot of money.
And that's it. It made a lot for other people a lot of money. They're the people I think that are always the root cause of the downfall of these stars. To be fair, so. One final one. So, what is the best compliment you've ever received?
Oh my goodness! Well, I can tell you. Let me tell you about the latest. I have 2 stories. Okay, and I have actually, because we had a little chat before, and I did tell you. The book I've just released a week ago. I got a message today from a drama teacher that I don't know, who said that she'd tried one of the lessons with her kids and they absolutely loved it. And she said, you should have seen the smile on their face. Yeah. Well, there you go. That's just, that's one. And then my other one, I was in the Caribbean and they have casinos, and I was in the casino on my own, and I came out at 10 o'clock at night. And as I came out, there was 2 couples. One just before me and one had walked on, and this guy looked at me and he went, "Are you Jacky Rom?" and now I'm suspicious, aren't I? Yes. He goes, "Oh, look," and he calls his friends over. "This is the writer, the author from UK, Jacky Rom. I've read all her books." And then they go to tell you about your characters as if they're real. Yeah. So I find that's a compliment.
That's brilliant. Yeah, when someone actually out of the blue starts telling you. I thought you were going to say starts telling you about your characters like they know them better. I sometimes think the readers probably do. So yeah, I mean,
that's what I mean. That's what he did. Yeah, he said, "I love Sandy." Her name's Sandra. No, it's not. I don't do that. It was funny. I loved it.
That's brilliant. So just to finish off, I'll give you the floor now. So. Just think of it as a bit of a sales pitch. Anything out there that that people should be reading, listening to, watching, where to find it?
Chris, me do a sales pitch? Never.
Never. No, that's why I thought I needed to go out of you, really. So.
Help me out here, yeah. As I said before, the best thing to do is always go to jackyrom.com because all the links are there. But I do a bit of everything. So I have a podcast, The Life of a Crime Novelist. I have a YouTube series, which is Jacky Rom, the channel, and I write books and I teach drama. I don't sleep very often.
No, I was going to say, you don't have time for that kind of thing, normal life. So
it's in the way. And the funny thing is I'm single, so I date as well now. Well, I could write a book on dating as an older lady.
There you
That's
go.
hilarious. So we'll have to have a chat all about that one day because it's just funny.
When probably it's not being recorded. Not sure. I don't know.
Oh no!
Part 2. There we go.
It's all funny.
There you go. So we've been promised.
No, I haven't got. No, I wouldn't be telling rude. I haven't got any rude.
But there you go. We've been promised a part 2, Jacky Rom part 2, which I look forward to arranging that with you very soon. Cool. But thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you again for the part you played in getting Dead Men Talk to being, really. And all the best, all the success in the world with your new series, with your books, everything that you're doing. And so everyone check out Jacky Rom Investigates on YouTube every Friday. Do they drop new episode?
Every Friday, 10 o'clock.
So there you go. So subscribe to the channel. You'll get a message every time there's a new one out, but definitely worth a look. So thank you so much for coming along.
My pleasure.
If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like, share, and hit the subscribe button. Also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at ChrisTBAuthor to keep updated about all future shows.